As always, here at the Pig and Whistle Wind instalment, I chat for a variety of subjects with regards to World of Warcraft. So grab a bottle or a pint, sit back and enjoy. And today's subject, we're going to be going over sort of WoW pro tournaments. So you've got the arenas and the mythics. And these are two completely different tournaments because obviously one is PvP and one is PvE. There are different formats to how each is run. And I'm going to be going over them and sort of giving the dates, the ins and outs of it almost. So, without further ado, we'll sort of go through the arena dates, we'll go through the mythic dates, we'll go through the format of how each is set up, and then how to enter, and finally we'll give sort of my thoughts on why these competitions are good for not only Blizzard but to also watch just as entertainment value, etc. So we're going to start off with the arenas. So we have had a arena tournament that has already been played, and that was the week that's just gone, which is the 15th, 16th and 17th of January. Now these tournaments will all have 3 days that are dedicated to them, and this is for arenas. The first day is for EU, second day is for NA, and then the last day is for EU and NA, but it's the last 4 teams of each region. So you start off with, I'll get into that in a bit, but you've got the 15th, 16th, 17th of Jan, which is the first tournament, which has just gone. This coming week, we have the 22nd, 23rd and 24th of Jan, which is the Mythics. Week after is the 29th, 30th, 31st for the arenas, so on and so forth. There's a pattern to this. So the arenas start, and then every other week the arenas will be back on. So the arena started on the 15th, the next week is Mythics on the 22nd, and then arenas are back on the 29th. And this is the same with Mythics. So after the 29th for the arenas, the Mythics will start on the 5th. After the 5th, it'll be arenas on the 12th. After the arenas on the 12th, it'll be the 26th. Am I correct in that? Yeah, it'll be the 26th that they have dated. I'm not sure if they miss out a week there. It might be because it's like the start of the back half, like the last 2 cups, so there might be a small break for the players in between. So it might be that sort of thing. But after the 26th, you have the 5th of March for the last arena, and then after the 5th, you have on the 12th of May. May? January, February, March. Not May, March. Well, what the hell? I literally wrote it down differently on my notes here. I've wrote May for Mythics and March for the arenas, so it's a bit. I'm not too sure how I've managed to do that. I think I had a brain fart there. But on the 12th, 13th and 14th is when the last tournament will be played. Now, there are usually 3 tournaments, or 3 big tournaments throughout the year. So this is the first tournament that's happening in the first few months. And then there will generally be a 2-month period break. And that will be, I would have thought, I'm having to go through all of my months. Oh my god, I can't believe I forgot that. I'm having to go through all my months now. January, February, March, April and May will be sort of break months, and then it will resume in the summer of like June, July, August, and then it will be a break until October, and then it will go from there again, probably for the winter months, ending in around December time. There's usually 3 tournaments, and there's 4 cups within each of the tournaments for both Mythics and Arenas. So the format of, we'll start with the Arena format. You have an upper and lower bracket, and basically you have 8 teams in the upper bracket, and 4 of these teams move on to the next round, and the 4 that lost go down into the lower bracket and play each other. and the loser of them 2 games, the 2 like lower bracket games, is eliminated, and the next 2 move on. And then out of the 4 teams in the upper bracket, 2 of them will lose, and they'll drop down to the lower bracket to face the 2 teams that won in the lower bracket, and so on and so forth, until you get pretty much 2 sort of semi-finals in the lower bracket, 1 big semi-final, and then a final, obviously. So there's always someone from the lower bracket going into the final. There's always someone from the upper bracket who has not lost going into the final as well. That way you've got sort of a buffer. If you do lose one of your series in the arenas, you have that extra sort of lifeline to give yourself to pick yourself up and get yourself in that final to win it. It's a bit complicated trying to explain it. It's a lot easier when you see what I mean, and it's a lot easier to just see it and visualize it, or visualize it within your mind, for me anyway. But with the Mythics, it's a completely different format. So you're not competing against each other. It isn't sort of a knockout elimination type thing. Kind of is, but kind of isn't. But think of it like football. And this is English football, by the way, for any American listeners. So soccer, as you would call it. But it's based off of a points system. And you play a best out of 3 dungeons. So it could be you win 2-0, you win 2-1, you lose 2-0, or you win 2-1, that kind of thing. And depending on how many maps difference you had is the points that you get. So if you beat a team 2-0, you get 2 points. If you beat them 2-1, you only beat them by 1 map, so you get 1 point. Nice and simple. And every team plays each other. And at the end, there will be sort of a top 4, I believe. And then top 4 will go against each other, and it will be like a sort of mini knockout stage until there is a crowned champion. Now, to enter these sort of tournaments, the arenas, there's something. You've got to start off in arena cups. And these are 3v3 tournaments that are hosted by Blizzard. And they're open to everyone, absolutely, completely open to everyone. Obviously, if you're brand new to PvP and you want to give it a try, you are more than welcome to. But I wouldn't get your hopes up. The people that compete in these tournaments are the best of the best. They are the people who actually go to BlizzCon and who have actually won this thing in the past. So you can have a tough time if you've never PvP'd before, but you are more than welcome if you agree to like the terms and conditions, like by Blizzard and stuff. Your account is in good standing, so not been banned for more than 48 hours, etc. There are like all them sort of things that you got to go through, but you can just enter the tournament, and as you win, you'll get closer and closer to the actual like live one, pretty much. So the top sort of 8 will be the ones that are being streamed in the Mythics. But I believe after each cup, the 2 that lost out of the 8 teams in the arena, they go back into the sort of pool size of all the teams that want to compete, and they have to fight for their place again. So there's 6 guaranteed spots if you don't get knocked out. Like the top 6 get their guaranteed spot. If you're the 7th or 8th place, you go back into the like tournament pool, and the top 2 from them tournaments will come up to face the 6 that stayed there, pretty much. And that's how it works, I believe, for Shadowlands. Now, for the Mythic entries, you have to do something called time trials. And this is basically you have to practice and record the best 3 dungeons on a tournament realm, and the fastest 8 teams are qualified. It's that simple. You have to basically accept your terms and conditions, and they have to approve your account to be able to use a tournament realm. And what a tournament realm is basically it gives you access to everything. Gear, legendaries, conduits, just everything. Absolutely everything that is obtainable in the game, you will get it for free, and you sort of, it's like an armory. You walk into an armory and you've got everything there laid out in front of you, and you pick what you want. You pick what weapons you're going into battle with, that kind of thing. Now, I'm not too sure if there's new teams that come up, if they do this throughout the entirety of the thing. I couldn't find any information on how they sort of judge the other teams that were close to competing but didn't actually make it. I would have thought it's the same sort of process in the like it is in the arena scene. So they would dump the 7th and 8th place of them teams out of the Mythic Invitationals, they're called, and they would be dumped into the cup again, and they would have to resubmit their 3 best dungeons and times and stuff in order to get brought back up into the streamed events and possibly have a go at the main prize. Now, Mythics and Arenas are completely different things. Completely different things. They bring completely different aspects to the game, and it's quite fun to see all of the different aspects coming together pretty much. So with Arenas, now this is my favourite because I'm a PvPer over a PvEer. Now with Arenas you see the different compositions that teams run, you see the weaks and strengths of certain classes, of how these classes all benefit each other. There was a lot of paladins, there was a lot of mages with shaman, mages with a druid, mages with anything pretty much. There was some cleaves, so you had a warrior and a monk, you had loads of melee heavy groups, death knight warrior, death knight monk, you have loads of them sort of things, and you sort of watch. It's tough to keep up on everything when it is an arena because there is so much happening. It's a lot easier to be in a 3v3 yourself than it is to watch it on a screen and see everyone's movement, because you're just concentrating on yours, your healer, and sort of their CC, pretty much. Their CC, their setup, pretty much. That's kind of what I want to say. So it's not as hectic, and you do get a little bit of respite during the game when there isn't as much CC, there's no burst, etc. But you do see how different classes complement each other. So you've got cyclones for druids, you've got polymorphs from mages. I mean, the most fun games that I saw and watched were the ones where it was a druid and a mage, because you would go for your burst window and then it would just be kiting and sort of surviving until that next burst window with cyclones, polymorphs, etc. So you sort of learn how everything plays in a pro setting, and I'm trying to adapt that to sort of my arena gameplay as well, and it's quite fun to learn these different ins and outs of your class. I myself main druid in Shadowlands, so it's quite fun learning the ins and outs and how tanky you can build, how aggressive you can build, what sort of talents to pick, etc. Now, with Mythics, it's completely different, ballpark. There's no one to go against. It's you versus these NPCs that have been mechanically programmed to cast certain spells. And you're in a group of 5, you've got 5 people, you always have a tank healer, and then there are different compositions that you can have with your group. I mean, you could have 3 boomkins to have multiple solar beams if you want to go for a massive pull. You can have 3 fire mages to go absolutely crazy on bosses. They won't do much else, but they'll go absolutely crazy on bosses and just one-shot it. There's many different things that bring their utility into a mythic, because you're not limited by what the other team is picking, and you're not limited by the amount of spells that the NPCs can use, because they have a set spell or spells that they use, and you can apply your tactics depending on what spells and what mobs you're going to be pulling within the dungeon. So there's a lot of strategizing in a mythic compared to arenas. With arenas, it is very much, okay, we're going to polymorph this guy, we're going to set up now, it's very quick, it's very fast paced. Whereas in these mythics, if you're trying to do time trials, you can experiment a little. It's like, okay, let's give this a go. Okay, that didn't work, we got absolutely ruined. Let's give this a go now. Okay, that worked a bit better, so maybe we can sort of alter it this little bit. Maybe we bring in a boomkin instead of a shaman. Maybe we bring in a warrior instead of like the Death Knight tank or whatever. Like there's a few things that can alter the entire Mythic run because of the abilities that certain classes use. Solar Beam, great for just interrupting absolutely everything. It's a mass interrupt, it's a mass silence. If you want a mass stun, you'd pick a shaman for the capacitor totem or something. If you want just a massive bunch of damage all at one spot, you go for a mage with combust or something. You just go for like a couple mages. You can really sort of experiment with it and get a load of ideas that other people wouldn't have. Because in arenas, there are those classes that stand out and are a lot stronger compared to anything else. I mean, just look at the past arenas. I think about 80% of the time, all we saw was a Holy Paladin as a healer. In Battle for Azeroth, about 80% of the time, until like the final sort of patch, all you saw were druids, like Druid Rogue Mage, because they had perfect setup, they had perfect heals, they had a lot of mobility, Druid was tanky, couldn't be swapped to. That's why the Holy Paladin's been run, because they have so much old shit buttons, such as Blessing the Sacrifice, bubbles galore. You've got absolutely everything, instant heals, you don't necessarily need to cast, so therefore there's less chance of being interrupted. And because of how bursty everything is, them old shit buttons really come in handy. Druids don't really have that. Shamans do, to the extent where it's a lot tougher, mainly because you're having to cast. But shamans they can compete with Holy Paladins. We saw a few of them, and we saw a few Disc Priests as well in the tournament. But it's mainly because priests have mana problems, Holy Paladins don't, shamans can get interrupted, and Paladins still have that, like, multiple oh shit buttons, which is very useful for multiple team members, in fact. So there's a lot of more niche things that you can look at and sort of appreciate in the Mythic Dungeon tournaments, which is why that makes it so amazing. If you're a massive PvEer and you love doing Mythic Dungeons, you want to really push for the best dungeon that you can with your group of friends, you want to go for this plus 15 sort of Halls of Atonement dungeon, and there's a team that run it, and they run this specific comp, and they do these specific pools. You can take that and you can alter it a little bit depending on your group of friends and what they play. So they might do like small pools because they've got massively insane like single target damage, and they might bring everything to a boss because they'll pop hero on the boss or something, whereas you can just drag all the mobs together without the boss, do like an even bigger pool with the mobs, pop hero on that, and then just kill the boss solo. So there's a few niche things that you can do to alter it, and it will be fun because it's not just two teams sitting in the same arena smacking each other. When someone's got a burst up, that's when you know, oh shit, I've got to press this button. It's two different screens, and they can go completely opposite ways within the dungeon with what they are doing, which makes it amazing. They could be in the same dungeon but doing completely different things, which makes it a lot more enjoyable sometimes, and it makes it more fresh, more rewatchable in that instance. Now, don't get me wrong, some people might find arenas boring, but I like it. It's the same, it's two teams butting heads, who's the better team, who can set up better and stuff like that. Some people might think it's stale because it's the exact same thing. Two teams going head to head in the same arena, kind of boring. They might think Mythics are a lot better because it's more fluent. There's multiple things happening on each side of the screen that you're looking at, as when you are watching the tournament, it's literally split half and half your screen. One team will be on the right, one team will be on the left. And if there's a big moment within the dungeon, they'll enlarge the team that is doing that moment and sort of shrink the box down where the other team aren't doing really much. So there's a lot more fluidity to the Mythics, but overall, these arenas and these Mythics allow people to watch it and either just for entertainment value, or they watch it to grow as a player themselves and sort of take notes as to what these pros are actually doing within the game and sort of what things that they've come up with that you wouldn't necessarily think of doing at all. So there's many different benefits to each of them. I personally enjoy the arenas so much more. I will watch the mythics that start on the 22nd, because I do want to see how teams do certain dungeons, because I do myself mythics for the gear and stuff and with a group of friends, and it is good fun. So I'll be watching the mythics as well and sort of enjoying that time. And I'll just have the mythics on in the background, to be honest, while I'm either farming whatever on WoW. But these are really good things by Blizzard that have been going for years now, since 2008, the arenas, I believe, and probably the same for Mythics, I would have thought. No, not Mythics. Mythics weren't out then. Mythics came out in, Legion. So, since about 2014, is it? Legion came out? Oh God, no, that was WoD. About 2016. Whoa, Jesus. That's a while back. That's insane. Yeah, about 2016, the Mythics started. But it's really good entertainment. It's watching the arenas has certainly helped me a bit. It doesn't help that I change mains every expansion. I've gone back to the Druid, which was my original main when I first started playing. So that's always good fun. But it has developed me as a player watching the arenas. It's just more like, oh, okay, I don't necessarily need to panic as much in this regard. But I'm a lot more aware of what's happening. I'll be a lot more aware of what cooldowns are being used when they're sort of setting up their like burst window. I'm already gone, stuff like that. So I really do recommend watching even the Mythics or arenas, both if you really want. But if you're more of a PvEer, Mythics definitely. If you're more PvP, I would recommend the arenas. They're just good fun to watch. They're good entertainment. They're nice to have in the background, especially the arenas, because it's all streamed on YouTube. And basically, you can just have it on like a second monitor on your phone, whatever. You can be playing well, and then you can just hear the commentators like scream a bit, and you can just rewind it about 10 seconds, 10, 15 seconds, and just rewatch it. It's sort of nice and easy to keep up, but you don't have to necessarily watch it the entire time. You can just hear the commentators perk up almost when something's really going to happen, and you can just rewatch it whenever you want. But it is very entertaining, I would say. Both are very entertaining and have their own perks to it. But that is all for this week's episode, guys. I really do hope you enjoyed. I would, again, recommend watching the Mythics that start on the 22nd through to the 24th. At least give it a go if you never have before. It's 6 GMT, so I'm not too sure about other time zones, but it's 6 GMT for me, and in Europe that is 7 CET. So if you're anywhere in Europe, make sure that it is that time for you. And for America, I'm not too sure, because obviously you got East Coast and West Coast, so it's going to be a lot different. But I would have thought around sort of midday-ish is the best way to go for you, because most of these tournaments are hosted for NA time, because obviously that's where the bigger audience would be. So it's probably a better time for you anyway. But I'll stop just chugging along and have words come out of my mouth randomly. Thank you all very much for listening as always. If you would like to check out the Pick and Whistle Facebook page, currently have a Patreon special going on at the moment. This lasts until the 31st of January, so please do check it out. And just follow the Facebook page. I would really appreciate it, and it would help out the podcast so much. And please really appreciate it as well if you leave a rating, comment anything that you want. Feel free to ask any questions. More than happy to answer and get back to you on them. Thank you all very much for listening as always, and go with Valor, friend. Goodbye all.